Hello everyone, please, I'm Rosalind Adutwumwaah and I'm presenting on biodiversity. Biodiversity. Biodiversity talks about the various life forms on the earth. That's mainly plants and animals. So here, we move on to biological variety. The variety of life forms on earth, from genes and bacteria to entire ecosystems like forest and coral reef. So the forest, coral reef, and plants and animals, they all form part of the biodiversity. Interconnectedness, how they interact with each other to form a stable ecosystem. So it forms a complex web where every species, no matter how small, plays a vital role in ecosystem stability and resilience. Now let's move on to evolutionary legacy. The results of 4.5 years of evolution creating a natural library of genetic information essential for survival. So when you talk about evolutionary legacy, it talks about how the plants and animals changes over time due to their characteristics. So we have three levels of biodiversity. One is genetic diversity. With the genetic diversity, it talks about the variety of genes within a single species. So with looking at the birds here, they are birds of the same species, but they have different characteristics and traits. This allows populations to adapt to changing environments and resist diseases. The second level is species diversity. It talks about the number and variety of different species in a region, talking about different species like mammals and birds coming together in a region to form a stable ecosystem. And the last one is ecosystem biodiversity. Talks about the variety of habitats and biological communities, how all these different species come together to form a stable ecosystem. So let's look at the economic value of nature. That's the annual GDP dependent, that's the gross domestic product. The vital ecosystem services. Over half of the world's total GDP is moderately or highly dependent on nature and its services. Healthy ecosystems provide pollination. Over 75% of global food crops rely on it. Purification, natural filtration of air and water. So the biodiversity helps to purify our air and water. Medicine. 50% of drugs are derived from nature. So, for example, trees, we use trees mainly for food and also it serves as a source of medicine. So let's move on to climate and biodiversity. Biodiversity is our strongest natural defense against climate change. Ecosystems like forests and oceans act as massive carbon sinks, absorbing about half of human-made emissions. So ecosystems like forests and oceans, they really help in absorbing excess carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, which helps to protect our biodiversity. However, rising temperatures are triggering irreversible loss. Coral reef face total collapse if warming exceeds 1.5, threatening coastal protection and marine life. We all know how coral reefs are important to our marine life and our oceans. They serve as a main support to our fishes and they protect them. Now let's move let's move on to global wildlife population decline. Freshwater population. About 85% of our freshwater population have declined due to the destruction you have caused to them. Let's move on to the global average. About 73% of it has also declined. Terrestrial population. About 67% of our terrestrial population, that is our trees and our lands, have been declined. Marine population. About 56% of our water bodies have also declined. The 5 main drivers of loss. 1. Habitat loss, driven primarily by unsustainable food production and urban expansion. Due to urbanization, most of our trees have been cut off and are turned into infrastructures and building places. 2. Overexploitation, targeted hunting and overfishing beyond the Earth's regenerative capacity. Due to hunting and poaching and overfishing, most of our land and our oceans have also declined. Pollution, chemical runoff, plastic waste, and industrial emissions poisoning in the web have also declined our biodiversity, that's our plants and animals. Now let's look at the crisis of habitat loss. Land use change is the single biggest driver of biodiversity loss. Human activity have already significantly altered over 75% of ice-free land. So over 75% of our land has been destroyed due to human activities. Now let's move on to agriculture. Accounts for 90% of forest loss. Most of our lands have been used for agriculture, which has caused our forest areas to decline. Fragmentation. Splitting ecosystem into isolated islands prevents migration. Using our lands for buildings, for road constructions have also declined our forest areas and other living organisms' habitats. Impact. Loss of coal for millions of species. Due to that, millions of species' homes have been threatened. Now let's look at the global species at risk. Amphibians, 41% shrinking. Loss, habitat loss, disease, and climate change. Coral reef, 33% threatened. Ocean warming and acidification. Mammals, 26% threatened. Poaching and habitat fragmentation. Conifers, 34% threatened. Invasive pests and droughts. Now let's look at the strategic conservation path. 30 by 30 goal. Conserving 30% of the Earth's lands and sea by 2030 to ensure ecosystem recovery. This is an initiative made to conserve our biodiversity. The second one is restoration, rebuilding degraded ecosystems like wetlands and peatlands to sequestrate carbon. The third one is policy action, eliminating $500 billion per year or in harmful subsidies by damaging industry. Then the last one, indigenous rights, supporting the 5% of the population who guard 80% of its biodiversity. So we support by supporting those of the lands which have not been threatened. Now let's look at the global biodiversity governance. So in 1992, the UN established a Royal Summit to conserve biodiversity. And in 2010, the IFIC target, that's 20 global goals for 2020 to halt the loss of biological diversity. In 2022, that's the Nkrumah monstrous historic agreement to reverse biodiversity laws by 2030 and 2024 plus. Thus, they are done implementation, focusing on the funding and national strategies for 30 by 30 targets. So, to conclude, biodiversity is very important for humans and for all organisms. So, it should make it a point to protect our biodiversity. Thank you. Any question?